Welcome to this session of the CX Exchange. My guest is MaryAnn Monroe, the Vice President for Total Experience Solutions and Services at Maximus. MaryAnn, welcome back to the program. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're talking about this idea of customer experience, but not just customer experience. It's really the idea of meeting mission. And if you go back over the last 3-4 years, you can hit a couple of the high notes. The December 2021 executive order around customer experience. Over the last few years, agencies have really focused on hiring CX experts, naming leaders in customer experience. There's 38 high-impact service providers now. OMB has called out specific life experiences for like retirement or recovering from disasters. And all of these, and much more, I could go on and on and on, are not focused on technology or the agency itself, but really how the agencies and the government as a single unit or team are delivering services to citizens more effectively. And that's where I'm going to start with you. I think each agency is on a unique journey, but at the same time, they are also trying to head down a path together. Right. CX, digital modernization, what are you starting to see? How is all this coming together?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Well, it surely is coming together with all of the different frameworks and legislation that you just described, and even more recently with the President's 2025 budget and all of the extra funding that has been brought forward for many agencies, as well as the different investments that agencies are also seeking to make in their staffing and upskilling of their staff. So we're continuing to ride this wave and this momentum in the overall customer experience journey that agencies are having and are taking. And I guess I would start by saying that it's different in every agency, right? Every agency is at a different point in their journey of their maturity. Many are focused on the user experiences of the products and services they provide. Others are focused internally on their building of their employee experiences and upskilling of their teams. But we are seeing this all come together and continuing to move forward with momentum in the latest budgets that are seeking more investment in CX. So that's a fantastic sign of what's to come and what's to continue.
When I looked at the 2025 budget as just an example, the investments, they talk big dollars, but it's also more than just the money, it's also the people side. And I think that's really the key here. You can give lots of money, and I think you saw that maybe with some technology over the years, whether it was cloud or cybersecurity, a lot of money, but did they have the people to put it together? Is that the key? It's always, people's always the key. We're not going to try to unpack that. But you talked a little bit about the skilling and upskilling of staff and hiring of staff. What are some of those trends you're seeing around that? Because without the people, nothing happens.
That's right. The people are at the center of making this all happen. Both the people that support these initiatives and programs across agencies, and also the people that support as government contractors as well. So it's a combination, and at Maximus, we commonly refer to CX like encompassing the total experience because it includes customers, it includes our clients' perspectives, mission outcomes that they're driving, as well as the people who are providing those services and developing those products for the agencies. So the people piece is critical, and from our point of view is at the center of providing great experiences. If you don't start with the proper skilled people, you can't deliver then and execute on your outcomes for better CX.
I like the idea that you mentioned this total experience. I think one thing that sometimes can get lost in the conversation as we talk about customer experience is the employee side as well as the citizen side. If you look at what OMB and a lot of the legislation and policies have really focused, okay, how can we serve citizens better? How can we make it easier for the citizen to not have to go to USDA and Interior and FDA, and can they just go one place and get that full experience? But on the opposite side is that employee side. Are you seeing more agencies talking about that employee experience as part of this total experience?
Absolutely, Jason. More agencies are really trying to bolster their teams and bolster their skills needed to really focus on employee experience, anything from the wholesale training and workshops that they're doing to better understand problems and engage the teams in solutions and problem solving is certainly a trend we're seeing, and it's something we're doing at Maximus as well. We have embedded customer experience teams within our major programs serving the public because of the emphasis we feel is so important on enabling our teams, and that rather than having somebody come in and do it for you, do it with them and really build those CX champion teams across our organizations. And we're seeing that same momentum in the government agencies we work with as well.
Let's dig into that idea of doing it with you, because I think in the end, what you're trying to do is get the business side, get the technology side, bring that all together to really deliver on that mission. What are some ways you're seeing agencies are kind of demonstrating progress with customer experience? There's lots of metrics we know. There's lots of ways to say, oh, look, we're more popular today than yesterday, but that doesn't mean you're getting better customer experience.
That's right. That's right. What we're seeing is really the bringing together of different disciplines. It's so important that you bring together your IT teams and speak their language when you're talking with them about the different systems and technologies that they're implementing for the agency, as well as your user experience teams, your digital services teams. If an agency has a CX office, really that multidisciplinary approach and communication and collaboration has really been critical to moving the needle and to having more success when you bring all of these disparate groups together. Even procurement and contracting is coming together now on the scene, and understanding customer experience and how that plays a part in how you build your contracts appropriately.
When you bring up contracting, it leads me down the path back to the digital services teams and this idea of we're going to build, iterate, continue to build.
Yes.
We could talk all day about DevSecOps, but because we're not delving into the technology for today, the contracting folks have got to understand, okay, what we're buying today may change tomorrow, and we have to be flexible enough.
Yes.
Is that understanding really starting to take hold? Are you starting to see some of the, when you look at contracts that come across your desk and go, okay, we're going to bid on that, that's showing that flexibility we need?
Absolutely. We're definitely seeing customer experience concepts as well as user experience concepts being woven into requirements in contracts, which is a phenomenal thing. Until you have that, you really can't take hold of these business practices and build them into your offerings, your service offerings. So definitely seeing an elevation in these best practices being woven in and built in, and not just an extra.
What does that mean for you when you respond? Does that make responses more difficult, more complex, or does it the opposite? It's less complex because you're not having to think of where are we going to be in 5 years? What's the technology we're going to be delivering in 5 years from now? Because if we talked about this 5 years ago, you and I, we wouldn't be talking about AI the way we do today. We wouldn't talk about so many different new technologies.
For us, it actually is an enabler. And from our perspective, we embed customer experience within our programs and in our teams. So this has been very favorable because I think it helps us better partner with our agency stakeholders and partners in improving CX or digital experiences if it's a digital program much more effectively than if it didn't exist at all. So I think it's a huge enabler, and we need to continue to see more of it baked in.
I think agencies are starting to kind of bring in that user experience side into the contracting, and I think it's a good sign that this idea of maturity, whatever that really means, is there even a CX maturity model? Do we need one?
There are a lot of different models out there, and I know GSA CX COE put a model out
That's
there.
right.
A lot of agencies have their own models. At Maximus, we kind of have merged ours together with the best practices that we take from our agencies' advice and direction. So we use that as a diagnostic. It's not ultra scientific in any way, but it's more of a diagnostic to get a sense of where a program may be today and where we might need to move them along from where they are. But I think the point here too is it's our job as Maximus to go where our customers are, our agency clients, and move with them, but also stay a little bit ahead and bring forward to them the things that might help enable and improve customer experiences. So taking them where they are, but also leading at the same time is important.
because I think the maturity piece, going back to it, is important for the contracting side as you see the way contracts are written, but it's also important to understand from the business impact. And I think that's the other area that I think I've seen a big difference is understanding if we improve customer experience, if we improve how we're delivering these services, not only are people satisfied, which is important, but we're getting, the employees are more satisfied, the customers are more satisfied, and we're more effective. Right. Talk a little bit about that tangible impact of business on the business too. How do you explain it? How do you make sure that the mission owners go, yeah, I want to do that versus, oh great, another thing I have to do.
Right. I think quantifying the business impact is so critical to CX. Otherwise, it's not tangible. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't seem real. So I think you've probably often heard of that saying, what you measure matters. And I think that applies here with customer experience metrics and ROI. So that looks different depending on the agency. For some agencies, it's about cost reduction and cost savings. And we've been able to partner with our agencies to do this in many of our Maximus programs where we've introduced automation to help improve efficiency and effectiveness of interactions, both digital and in human interactions. And at the end of the day, there's been a great cost saving. So that's one way of quantifying metrics.
I'm going to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
When you talk about cost savings, are we talking about true savings or more cost avoidance? Because I think both are key, mm-hmm. and we shouldn't say, oh, one's better than the other, but a lot of agencies, they want to stop spending here so they can spend here. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's just, well, we used to spend $5, now we spend $3, and that's a good avoidance. Yeah. I'm sure it's both, but what do you see more?
It is both, but for Maximus, we're seeing our ability to avoid costs by applying technologies and automations where they make sense. Yeah.
And I think that cost avoidance is, again, I just don't want to downplay the importance of it, because I think people sometimes go, well, is it really savings or is it really avoidance? It's like, what does it matter? It's less money being...
It's less money,
and
right.
you can put it somewhere else. You were going through ROI, so cost reduction savings is one. Keep going.
Burden reduction is another measure of ROI that many agencies are really zeroing in on. For example, Department of Homeland Security. So we've been seeing that too in the programs we support, where we are modernizing and digitizing forms to make it easier, faster, more effective to apply online for benefits and services. Just with our OPM program, for example, and retiree benefits and federal employee benefits. So I think that's a really important metric that more agencies are paying attention to, is how to decrease the burden that customers have in their everyday life interacting with a government service.
The burden piece, I think we probably underestimate the value of that. Mm-hmm. I know I've talked to Eric Heisen, the DHS CIO, several times about this burden reduction effort, and he talks about the number of hours they're trying to pull out of it. And then I've also, when Claire Monterana, the federal CIO, spoke maybe 6-8 months ago, maybe even a year ago almost, regarding the IDEA Act, now what they call the Digital Services Memo, where she said, listen, like, not enough forms are digitized. Like, it's something really small number. I remember like 2% of all forms. Actually, you can go in and fill out. That's not a PDF that you print out.
Right.
And I think that is burdensome on people. And I think that idea of burden, is that another that you talked about as return on investment? Is that also driving a lot of agencies in terms of what they're thinking about from a mission perspective?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you think of what we experience in our everyday life, we're able to do most things that we do and purchase or interact with very easily and seamlessly. And the government needs to get there. We're not there. We haven't arrived yet. But what I'm seeing, or what we're seeing, is this movement towards basic things like digitizing and modernizing forms and decreasing that burden that customers have in these ways is really important, and more agencies are focusing on it. I know for me personally, in my personal life, I was just applying for a passport online the other night for my husband. And I remember the day when I applied for my passport where it wasn't even an online option, right? So at least now I have an online option, and the form was printed out. It was very easy for me to figure out what his next steps were. So progress. It would be great if we could get to the point where we could totally, submit that form online, and I'm sure there's efforts underway to do that. But it's a momentum, and it's still shifting, and it's still a great area of focus.
And if there's not, the State Department could call Maximus, and I think you probably have a good idea for them.
I do have a great idea.
There you go.
Just give me a call.
Just give me a call.
Yeah.
We'll put your phone number across the bottom so people can...
Maybe not that.
All right. At the same time, when you talk about reducing burden, there's also the opposite, which is reducing burden on the federal employee. We talked a little bit about employee experience. EX is part of this idea. If I don't have to add, oh, great, now I have to scan this in. I have to make sure it's right. Oh, did the optical character recognition, the OCR, work well? There's a whole piece on that if it comes in and it's a few checks versus typing everything in, that's a big change too that we're seeing.
Absolutely. We're seeing that in several of our programs. For example, in one of our programs where we support veterans with their medical disability examinations, we've done a lot of work and continue to work to modernize that whole process and back end, to automate where it makes sense, to make the process go more smoothly and swiftly, and ultimately improve that overall experience and the efficiency that we're able to work with in terms of turning around those reports and those forms in a timely manner to the VA.
I think that's a great example of using CX to drive mission change. Right. From that, is any statistics, anything you're able to highlight from in terms of, hey, it used to take, pick your number, 12 hours to fill out. Now we can do it in 20 minutes, or anything stands out to you?
Yes, in some of our programs, the one I just mentioned, where we're serving our veterans, we've been able to more than double the amount of examinations that we're able to complete because of the modernization that we've been applying to the process, while still maintaining very high veteran satisfaction with the services we provide.
I know VA has spent a lot of time really focused on getting better satisfaction, improving satisfaction among the veterans and their families. So good example. I appreciate you sharing that. In the last 5 or so minutes we have together, I want to talk a little bit about the looking forward. We know in the 2025 budget, which you mentioned in the earlier part of our discussion, OMB is proposing something called the Voice of the Customer programs. And this is this idea of collecting performance data from a range of different people and then driving improvements. Obviously, it's a good thing, but talk a little bit about how can that new kind of program really continue to move the ball forward on CX, improved mission delivery.
Sure. I think it's great that there will be investments made in at least 8 agencies for VOC programs in the future. And from our perspective, it's a great place to start. So if agencies aren't collecting voice of customer, that's the most important thing to start with. So kudos to those that are making the investments. And then the data that you get from that really helps to elevate understanding of areas where you can zero in on and improve, and then weaving in other human-centered design and qualitative strategies to how you do your work every day is a great way to layer in other ways of capturing data where you're actually talking to the people you're serving. So it's getting the voice through VOC programs, and I might add VOE programs, voice of employee programs too. That's critically important, and there are several agencies that are investing in their platforms to collect voice of employee as well. We collect that information in our unified desktop where our employees are working and touching millions of citizens every day through our programs, and we're able to capture their sentiment as well as their feedback.
On the voice of the customer, maybe walk me through a little bit what a program could look like, because it sounds great, but if you're the IRS, you have 180 million customers. If you are the Agriculture Department, you have 300 million customers because everyone likes to eat, right? Yes. So at least we hope so. Yes. But so talk a little bit what are some of the basic pieces and parts?
So the basic pieces have been provided to federal agencies, which has been terrific, and hats off to OMB. The OMB A11 guidance provides a nice, simple structure in which to get started and then to build. So for these agencies that are just getting started, that's a critical piece of guidance for them to use and to model their voice of customer programs. And I would also say the other place to leverage is for For those agencies that are just getting started in their maturity in this process, tap the ones who've been doing it. They're out there. There's a lot of information on performance.gov, CX, on voice of customer results. And I think, this community of CX experts and leaders in government coming together and helping each other with this is fantastic.
Have you seen some agencies, or you said, who are already doing the voice of the customer? What are they getting from that? What are they understanding better today than maybe they didn't previously?
I think they're understanding more feedback in structured data, satisfaction scores, things like this, but also in unstructured data, in those open comments or those text sentiment and voice sentiment that gives them signals or insights into possible pain points and problems, or highlights, good things that they want to highlight and dig into deeper. So voice of customer is a great place to start, but I would say you need to marry that with other data to really get a better picture, and also with your qualitative research that you should be doing or have contractual support to do as well.
You also mentioned the voice of the employee. You said some agencies are going down that path. We know there's the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey, the FEVS. Mm-hmm. That's a huge piece of data that OPM provides every year. Mm-hmm. Are they doing other things as well to talk to their employees about, hey, how are you delivering the mission? How can we do it better? What suggestions do you have? Are you starting to see some of that internal discussions?
Absolutely. Talking to employees, tapping them through their own programs and roundtables and qualitative research. But I also have heard of some really great work going on, for example, at TSA, where not only are they using the FEVS data, but they're overlaying that with customer satisfaction data and seeing what insights they can learn from both the employees and the customers, and pulling those metrics together. And in some of our programs, what we're doing is, or we have the ability to do, is pull in a lot of the operational metrics that come from web analytics and contact center analytics with experience analytics, both from the customer reaching out, but also the employee. So having that viewpoint of operational and experiential is critically important.
One of the things when we talk about the multiple data is obviously you can get too much data. It's overwhelming. I don't know where to start. What kind of recommendations do you have for agencies? Again, when you look at the maturity curve, everyone's in the middle of it somewhere. But what are some of those recommendations you have for agencies of how to manage that data, understand that data, use that data more effectively?
Yeah. First and foremost, if you start with that basic framework that is provided by the A11, those are really great questions to understand better from customers. So that's a great level playing field to start with. I also think it's critically important that the agencies and programs at Maximus as well, that we have the right skill set of those data analysts that are really focusing on understanding the data, understanding what it's telling us, and being able to sift through to prioritize what might be the most important places to go first to fix or to problem solve, versus, as you mentioned, trying to figure out everything with a lot of data. It's really filtering it down to the customer data and the employee data and trying to use that to prioritize very specifically and action plan accordingly.
And I'm sure this, like everything else when we talk about technology, start small, pick one use case, see how it works, and then kind of grow. Is that the path, I guess, most agencies are doing? And are you starting to see them kind of, once they get that first use case done, it's like, oh, let's go faster?
Right. Oh, wow, this is what we can do now. Let's add to it. Let's iterate and improve it. In some of our programs, we've been able to very specifically capture the data that our agencies want out of our programs, but also what we need as a program to operate more efficiently and effectively to serve the public. So we've been able to hone our dashboards and our data collection and just kind of bring in what's most important to look at versus everything we can possibly collect.
And what's most important changes today. It's
Yes, it
important
does.
tomorrow. Maybe it's different. A month from now, it's still different. So all good advice and all things that agencies are moving down the path. We have just a couple, 30 seconds or so left. Just want to ask you, when we talk about CX and delivering on mission, what's the big takeaway from our conversation today? What do you want to make sure folks understand that as we wrap up our discussion?
I would say that we're at a time where the momentum is continuing, and to seize the moment. Take this and seize the moment. Start if you haven't gotten started, as we're seeing in the latest budget requests, but also continue to go deeper in your CX best practices to further move the needle on improving CX and EX.
My Latin's not great, but carpe diem, I guess, is what you're is what the.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
MaryAnn, unfortunately, we're out of time for this session of the CX Exchange. So let me thank my guest. MaryAnn Monroe is the Vice President for Total Experience Solutions and Services at Maximus. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Jason Miller, and you're watching Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more from the CX Exchange.